Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting episode. I really don't want to make an introduction. You ever like so worn out that you want to go to sleep, but you've just been moving, and it's like your heart and your adrenaline and everything is just pumping, and no matter how tired you are, you know if even if you take like even if I took my medicine right now, it would take me a couple hours probably for it to really matter because we were working on invitations. Now, hopefully we have plenty. If we don't, we don't, Because I'd like to keep, because we did one set this way. This is the second set, and the other are green. The green ones we did first. We would have done the second one in green too, but
couldn't get them.
Yeah, they stopped selling that particular design. And these got these off Amazon, and they were cheaper by what, $5 or $10 than if we bought them at Walmart or wherever.
Didn't even get them at Walmart.
No, yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
They bought them on Amazon.
So I want to thank my cousin Katie for the pictures that she just put up. I really appreciate that. I shared with Natalie Jewell, I think. I think that's her name. Because guess what? She was stationed on Okinawa when I lived there.
Oh.
Yeah. And at one point, she worked pediatrics at the hospital that I had tubes put in my ear.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I need to ask her if she remembers this one. There was like me and this one other kid, and he was like a toddler. I don't know how old I was. I was either a preschooler or early elementary. And they had this toddler, and they have these, you have to remember how far back that was. I mean, and it was an army hospital. They had these steel cribs for
it looked like a cave.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the baby, the toddler, I mean, he wasn't a baby, he was a toddler. And he was climbing out of the thing.
Uh-oh.
And they put a net over the top, and he was screaming. I'm like,
now they're like a rolling box.
Yeah.
The ones they have now.
And I don't know if she might remember that or not, but if she remembers that, then she was working on peds when I was there. Of course, they could have had a lot of toddlers that screamed like that. I don't know. I don't know why that kid was in hospital. I know why I was. But they put the tubes in and they fell out, and then they took me back, and they were going to put tubes in my ear a second time. They put me under, and then decided not to do it.
Oh, God. What's
So,
wrong with them?
I don't know. Because I used to have a...
Bag ear infection.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like once I got over one, I got another one. And they were bad. You know, look, I lived on an island.
Probably the damn much moisture.
Yeah, I mean, like, my parents would say, no, don't go swimming.
Yeah, right.
I lived on an island. What was...
on?
Yeah, I mean, the widest point on that island is 5 miles. The narrowest is 1 mile. I'm going to go swimming. I'm a little kid living on an island. I'm going to go swimming.
And I've already hired blue blazers.
You know, and
Sticking in.
And you know, I had friends. I mean, my goodness, I went. You know, some of my friends, especially the ones whose dads were of higher rank than mine, although my dad was not exactly low.
I think your dad was like a pretty tough nut to crack, even if there was a guy higher than him.
Yeah. Well, something. Oh, my cousin Katie may not know about this. My dad was an auxiliary police officer in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, And I found somebody on Facebook. I don't remember who she is. Sorry, but I don't. And she asked around about my dad, and they said she told me that my dad's nickname was Gentleman Jim.
Oh.
Yep. My dad was probably the kind of guy who just, hey, you're not hurting anybody. Look, my dad was a tough. I mean, he grew up on the docks. Okay, he was a tough guy, but he was. I always thought he was like really calm. But if he would have, what an auxiliary officer. An auxiliary officer was just like a volunteer.
Deputy.
Yeah, I mean they weren't um, licensed or whatever it's called. They just rode around. I think they had a uniform, but they just rode around with to help the cop. And the way I feel about cops, and my dad was one. Um, anyway, my dad was probably like, hey, just calm down.
Knock it off.
Yeah, Now on the other hand, if you got in his face,
Uh-oh.
then there would have been a problem. But I mean, I always thought, sorry, my eyes are. We've been working on this living room, and but anyway, so
I wish Ebony would give you an ambulance per city.
oh, that would be nice.
But kind of teaching.
Ouch. And so anyway, but I appreciate the pictures, and I like the one picture where I have the life jacket on. I commented on it and said that was me and my dad after we were shipwrecked on Okinawa before the battle for Okinawa started. No, I'm not that old. Now my dad, he served in World War II. Actually, my fiance's dad did as well. But my dad served Canadian Merchant Navy during the war. And my grandfather was Canadian Navy. He was first engineer on his ship, stoker. Both my dad and granddad were stokers. Seems like in my family, on one side, everybody was either a longshoreman or a merchant marine. On my mom's side, everybody was a farmer or a teacher. People on both sides, they served in the service, but aside from my dad, most of them only served during the war. On my mom's side, during the American Revolution, they served on both sides. That's why my mom's side is from North Carolina instead of Virginia, because in 1775, my family that moved to North Carolina moved from Virginia to North Carolina. And the side that remained in Virginia supported the colonists. The side that moved to North Carolina supported the crown. And there are, I believe, a French family originally. Cuthrell sounds French to me. And I had on an audio tape that I used to have that I lost in the fire, like everything else. And somebody was saying that they were at a family reunion, and that you hear them in the background sound, but we're French or something like that. But if you want some family history on about my mom's side, my grandfather served in the First World War, but he didn't go overseas, thankfully.
My
And
great uncles served in World War II in the same unit.
oh wow!
Yeah.
If you didn't hear that, she said her two uncles,
Twins.
twin. Oh my!
Twin brothers.
Twin brothers served in World War II in the same.
Ackland and Ike.
What?
Ackland and Ike.
Hanks.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Ackland and Ike Hanks.
One was a corporal and the other one was, I think, about a sergeant.
Oh. And
but they're both the same unit.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's different.
I'm surprised they allowed them. Maybe they weren't so concerned about that.
Well, after that group of brothers
Hmm.
went down, they were all on the same ship in the Pacific,
They
and
separated them.
yeah, or they tried anyway. But anyway, and during the War for Confederate Independence, I had two family members on my mom's side, yeah, two, that served, well, they were drafted by the Confederate Army. They were Yankee lovers. And there was Charles Cuthrell and Thomas Cuthrell. I think it, I think it was Charles.
We'll see how the fight against Longtown was going.
It was, I think it was Charles who deserted.
Oh, he was brave, wasn't he?
Well, he put on a, they were Yankee lovers. They supported the North. They didn't.
Yeah, but that's all he could kill.
Yeah, and after one of the battles for New Bern, they deserted in New Bern, North Carolina. Newbern, not newborn, but New Bern, and they kept the old English spelling for it. And tell you what, you want some good barbecue? East North Carolina barbecue is some
At one time, we
good
made
barbecue.
that stuff that was good.
Thank you. And um, there was a mass execution, a mass hanging, and they've never found any of the graves. And that's like middle part of the state, so I don't think the family really wanted to have to throw the body on the back of the wagon. And
Ugh,
I mean, can you imagine
having to do that.
in the heat
Yeah,
of North Carolina after a day or two?
that could be rough.
Yeah. So, but they've never found any of the graves. They don't know where they were buried. But there's a book called North Carolina Civil War Documentary, and in there is a speech given by a minister before the Confederate Congress talking about the incident. And there's also the Fremantle Diary, which you might really like, by Lieutenant Colonel Arthur James Lyon Fremantle of Her Majesty's Coldstream Guard. His Majesty, or her, I don't know if it was a king or a queen at the time, but he was a British Army officer, and a very really interesting book. Okay, it really is. It's not real long, and he talks about, because he said, as a British citizen, I could not legally just go into the Confederacy. I had to go through a neutral country, which was Mexico. And then he went up into Texas, and he almost got himself hung because they're like to a lot of Southerners, he sounded like a New Englander,
Uh-oh.
and they're like, "You're Yankee, get the rope." And he had to convince them he was English. And he was essentially a spy. I mean, there were a few people like that. They were trying
Who
to.
was that now?
Lieutenant Colonel Arthur James Lyon Fremantle. He was a British Army officer.
Oh.
It's called the Fremantle Diary, and they have it on Amazon. And he met with these guys that were going to be hanged,
Hate all
and
these damn Ebony.
and
I
he
hate the bike key.
and actually I think it was the minister that it was either Colonel Fremantle or the minister who talked. He met with these guys who were going to be hanged. They're like 15, 20, 35 people that were hanged all at one time. And the Confederate commander in charge of that, after the war, went to Canada trying to keep himself from being hanged. Eventually he came back, but after assurances were made that he would be safe. But he stayed in Canada for a while. But he met with these guys, and he divided them into three groups. The first group, which I think was the largest or the second largest of the group, they were illiterate, they weren't intelligent, etc., etc. I feel bad for these people, they don't know any better. The second group, some of them may have been literate, some of them maybe not, but they were, average people. Kind of felt bad for them. And then you have my my great-great-uncle, and the group he was a part of, there were only 3 or 4 of them. These were Southern aristocrats. These were educated people. He did not feel sorry. He had no sympathy for them. They should have known better. And they were hanged. I believe the
We have the mule.
tobacco, potatoes, cotton, corn.
Meat farm or cotton, as far as I know.
And something else interesting, during the Roosevelt administration,
Which it seems like quite a battle to farm cotton.
Yeah, you have to get out there and pick that stuff, and
Hurts like hell.
Yeah,
I know. I remember one time I had him stop the car. We were down there in southeast Missouri, and I tried to bend it like a tree limb. It doesn't snap. You have to cut it.
Yeah.
Like
And the Roosevelt administration, in all their idiocy, that's why my granddaddy stopped farming, because all the new rules and regulations. He was a poor dirt farmer, and he couldn't do it anymore. And the government would come in and buy all the potatoes, and they would put a dye on them and tell everybody that it was poisonous. And then they'd take all the potatoes and dump them in the swamp. And that was
stupid.
Yeah, there went. They could have sold those potatoes. The farmers could have sold those potatoes. To this day, in the United States, there are farmers who are paid by the government to grow a crop and then plow it under.
Stupid.
I'm like, that's ridiculous. But my grandmother was a school teacher and Sunday school teacher. Some information on that. My grandmother, when desegregation came about, this is a town called Aurora, Aurora, North Carolina.
Oh.
Google it. It's like 500 people. It for a few years it went up to like 700.
I'm sure that was a bad mess.
Yeah, it's this little itty bitty town in rural North Carolina, out near the coast, on the near the Pamlico River. And one thing I'd like to do, if my fiance and I could do it, one thing I would like would be a sea kayak. There's a little place called Indian Island out in the Pamlico River, and I would love to go out there. My mother and uncle used to have like a little John boat and a little like 5 horsepower motor on it, and they used to go out there, fish and just walk around. I'd like to go camp out there and just explore the island. It's not very big. A lot of the island is washed away, but when my grandmother, when desegregation came, see, the black kids went to this school that was in the middle of a peanut field. And when desegregation came about, of course, my mother told me that building was kept. I don't know what they wound up using it for. But my grandmother went to the school board and said, I ain't teaching no black kids.
Uh-oh.
And guess what? They didn't fire her. They said, sure, no problem. And she never taught a black kid. She didn't teach uh, a specific grade because the school was
They
so
didn't
small.
used to.
But
They didn't used to. They teach like first through fourth grade together, you know,
yeah,
one room schoolhouse basically.
she taught like the youngest, like the first few grades. And when she started teaching, there was no kindergarten, there was no 12th grade. They initiated 12th grade when my mother was in school.
Oh my.
Yeah, so um, oh well, that's and if you want stories from Okinawa, oh boy, I could give you stories from Okinawa. I love living on that island. I pretty much grew up there, you know. And I love to take my soon-to-be wife to Okinawa. That I mean, yeah, things have changed, but it's Okinawa, you know, and it's a wonderful, beautiful place. One place I could never go to, well, I could go to, I couldn't go in, is Sherry Castle. It's just, it's like if somebody went to Ireland who wasn't of Irish stock and they went to, say, a castle that our family once was once our family's, I would be fine with them going around it, being on the outside, but not going inside. It's not theirs. They don't have the right to go there. And sure, knew, grew up with in Victoria that were from Japan. I so want to find this family. I know Dad kept in touch with them up till he died. And if you look
Who's
at,
that?
there was this family, the parents I think were from Japan. Yeah, my dad spoke multiple languages, and
I've always heard it said that Russian is the hardest language to learn.
I don't know. Well,
Very difficult.
on the Russian note, you do know that
I know Thai is not very easy to learn from Chai.
um,
Sawadika?
don't know what that is.
Sawadi is hello.
Oh,
Sawadi.
um, my grandmother would,
That's one of the easier words.
your great grandmother, I guess. She had a relationship with a Russian.
Oh,
Yeah,
Rusky.
yeah. I have no idea. Don't know what his name is. Don't know what part of Russia he was from or anything like that. But you know, this
That
family,
would be a hellish place to live.
especially back then.
Well, I mean, it's colder than blue frickin' Vegas.
You know. But anyway, if you know anything about this family from Japan, an interesting thing about them, when they went back, the kids, two of the sons, joined the Imperial Japanese Navy. I mean, think about it. My dad, my granddad, your great granddad, were in a war essentially fighting. I mean, I know my granddad and dad were over in the Atlantic, but still, it's the same war, essentially the same enemy. My step grandfather in Texas, he was on the USS Texas. It's a battleship Texas, and he was in the Pacific. He was off Okinawa for the Battle of Okinawa. Mrs. Hunt, her parents, my elementary school principal, one of my many elementary school principals. I went to a lot of schools.
Really?
Yeah. But anyway, so there's some interesting stuff for you. Have a great day. Bye.